Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
We're on mute, all right?
Welcome to the Board of Education 5/6/26 work session. Today, we will hear from the superintendent, Dr. Pascal Mabenga, regarding the district's strategic plan for the next 5 years, entitled Moving Forward Together. Board members, Vice President of Executive Affairs, Janita Everhart, and Vice President of Academic Achievement, Adriana Zulik, and I participated in the 3 interactive and stimulated 3 hours each per session to assist in this work and the final product along with 50 other stakeholders. So with no further ado, Dr. Mabenga.
All right, thank you, Madam President. I feel comfortable to be able to stand up there so I can have the PowerPoints that I can see as I'm presenting. It gives me a great pleasure today to be able to present our strategic plan. I know there may be 1 million viewers that are watching us today to see what's the plan for BPS is going to be. I'm going to preface this presentation by saying this. When I interviewed for this job, I've done this work for 10 years. I know if you don't have a plan, you're going to be at a point where everybody's telling you what needs to be done. That's the reason why, knowing Buffalo really well for the last month and 9 months since I've been here, I really wanted to be to make sure that this process is really inclusive. And I know when we get to the end of the presentation, you're going to see the people that were involved. All my staff were well represented. We had a civic organizations were represented. We had faith-based community, elected official, and so forth. This is not Dr. Mabenga's plan. This is BPS plan. I know I have a 4-year contract. I was very intentional to say 5 years plan. If I get to the point where I have to leave, I really want to make sure that this district will continue the work. And if a new person comes, want to continue with this work or want to tell this work, that will be fine. But it's going to be also the pleasure of the board to see how the community was engaged to be able to come up with this product. Without further ado, next slide, please. We're going to see the agenda. To be able to have a strategic plan in any normal setting, it takes a good 6 or 9 months to generate this. There were other organizations or school districts, they will spend a year developing this. Folks may wonder, say, how did you guys come up with this document so quickly in 3 months? I'm going to say this, it was not just 3 months. There was some work that were done before that 3 months, and there were work also that were conducted after. So the people that attended those 3 sessions, they are well informed that there was some work, led preparation work that were done, such as quantitative data that we're able to bring around the table, qualitative data when it comes to all the town halls or all the conversation that superintendent had with different stakeholders, they were also around the room so that the process could have gone really quicker. So I'm very pleased with what we're able to accomplish. Thank you to my staff that were able to help me to facilitate this process. As you know, this is not a one-person work. I had co-facilitators that were able to do this work with me, and they'll be presenting along with me today. We studied this work with core belief. In education, some of us that went to the School of Education, the first assignment you will have, probably in the foundation of education, they will tell you, what's your philosophy of education? What do you want to do? What do you believe in education? That's how we study the work. We're able to make sure that each person, about 59 persons that were in the room, they came up with their own philosophy of education. It was really a process the first day to get all these 59 philosophy or the belief of education to come up with the two that we have. It takes a lot of discussion, a lot of consensus for us to come up with this. I'm really pleased to report that what we have, those two paragraphs really summarize what we believe in as a Buffalo community. Quickly about the agenda, we have our core belief, then we have superintendent vision, mission statement, then we came up with 4 priorities. And then, as you can see the agenda, we're gonna have questions and answers. Board members, if you can do us a favor, I would like to spend about an hour with my staff presenting. Then you're gonna have an hour or more at the end to be able to ask questions. If we start being interactive with questions, we're not going to be able to go through the whole document. Again, that's your pleasure. Next slide, please. As I said earlier, we came up with 2 paragraphs that summarize our core belief. This is what we believe in. We believe every child has inherent potential and the right to high quality education. All students can achieve at a high level when provided with rigorous, culturally responsive instruction, equitable resources, and inclusive learning environments that ensure safety, health, and strong academic and life skill development. If you have to dissect that, that's heavy. That's the work that we're going to do. Then we came up with a second core belief. We believe education is a shared responsibility, rooted in equity and community. Diverse student, family, and community voices, along with strong family engagement and meaningful partnership, are essential to creating supportive environments that prepare confident, capable graduate ready for college, career, and civic life. We cannot do this work alone. And this did not come from the superintendent, it came from the group. They strongly believe that they're going to be partners. This work cannot be done if kids are not coming to school, if parents are not doing the share. When the faith-based community, while they have those families in their churches, they're not telling them that they have to come to school. This is really important. It's going to take all of us. Next slide, please. With that, once we're able to come up with our core belief, I felt comfortable. I said, now I can cast the vision. Where are we going to be in the next 5 years? This is not a vision that I just woke up and had a dream and said, this is where we're going to be. I was able to look at data across the state. I was able to look at data for the 5 big districts. When it comes to student achievement, ELA, math, and science, you just look at New York City, they're number 1, they're performing somewhere around 40s, low 40s. Then you have Yonkers, then you have a Buffalo number 3, then Syracuse, then Rochester. So for me to be able to cast this vision, I was confident, I was well informed about their data. We can be a leader if we really respect the core belief that it's going to take all of us to get there. So it's not only the state assessment, but we really want to make sure with that this vision to make sure that our students are really well prepared for career and life. That means all the AP classes that we are offering, all the CT classes that we are offering. We really want to make sure that our students are leaving us with credentials to be ready to be productive citizens. That's the vision. Now, next slide, please. Vision alone is not going to get us where we need to be. We gotta do work to get us there. That's the mission. So missions pretty much is what we're going to do to get to our destination. So this was also an activity that the group has to engage in, looking at data, and we came up with that. So the mission, I'm going to go ahead with the mission of our district. Buffalo Public School partners with families. That's crucial. Partner with families. We got to partner with families and the community to provide equitable, engaging, and supportive learning experiences that develop the whole child. The whole child. Not only cognitive knowledge, but the whole child. And empower every student to reach their full potential. The group left really confident to say, if we follow this mission, we'll be able to get to our destination, which is our vision. As we're doing this work, ideally, it's good to have probably 3 to 5 priorities, because once you have more than 5 priorities, it becomes cumbersome. So the group decided to come up with 4. What is not surprising, the first priority is about student achievement. So that's why we were able to label this academic excellence, not only student achievement, academic excellence. Priority 2, supporting the whole child, safety, well-being, and belonging. Very crucial. Priority 3, student, family, community, and collaborations. You can see everything is really tied to the core belief and the vision and the mission. We want to make sure that everybody's involved. And then the last one, the last one, efficient, effective, and equitable operations. Board members, I have the pleasure, I'm gonna have a pleasure here to introduce my staff that will be helping me to present the rest of our presentation. And if we are going to, you're going to agree with me to give us time here to be able to complete all these PowerPoints, and then I will be open for questions. Without further ado, the next person that will be complimenting me here is Dr. Tamara Thomas.
Thank you so much. Great evening.
Good evening.
Is it great? I've heard it said that you have to write a vision and make it plain so that people can follow it. And so that's what we've done together. There's a vision, it's been made plain. And for folks to follow it, you have to be very detailed in what needs to happen next. And so you have your core beliefs, as we've heard from our superintendent, our vision, our mission, our priorities were read aloud, and each priority has SMART goals. And so I'll be sharing with you priority number 1, which is academic excellence. You're looking at student achievement across our district, and there are 4 SMART goals attached to that one priority. The first goal is by June 2031, Buffalo Public School students in grades 3 through 8 will demonstrate a 20 percentage point increase in ELA and math proficiency on the New York State assessment. Similarly, for grades 5 and 8 in science. And then also we're looking at our achievement at the high school level, increasing advanced placement or dual credit enrollment. And our last goal here, by June 2031, the overall graduation rate is going to increase as well. So these are the SMART goals that we are following. If we could go to the next slide. Here we have our benchmarks. So each SMART goal is going to have benchmarks tied to it. So when you look at the very first goal, which speaks to students in grades 3 through 8 demonstrating a 20 percentage point increase in ELA and math proficiency, what you see here, goal 1 in that first upper left corner, it's speaking to what is going to happen in ELA and math, starting with our baseline. So the very top line is going to show you where we're coming from. This year will give you our baseline based on the results that we get at the end of this year. And then we've projected an increase of 3 percentage points or 4.5 percentage points each year until we get to that 20 percentage point total increase in 2031. Hopefully we can exceed that. We're not going to count that out, but we need to plan accordingly for where we see ourselves reaching by 2031. Same thing for goal 2. When you look at that, you'll have there the benchmarks for 5th grade and 8th grade science. Goal 3 in the lower left corner, same benchmarks for AP and dual enrollment. And then you also have goal 4, we have our grad rate, and you can see how that's going to progress over the years by 2031. Next slide, please. How will we get there? There are specific strategies tied to each SMART goal. And with that, we detail exactly what we're going to do. So here you'll see 4 strategies attached to just the first goal. When you see strategy number 1, it says build a strong MTSS RTI system by strengthening tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 supports. So when we're referencing MTSS, we're talking about multi-tiered systems of support. That means we're looking at overall school improvement. So you're looking at core tier 1, which is what every single student is supposed to be exposed to for academic achievement. We're also looking at, when you think about MTSS, you're looking at not just academics. We're looking at behavior. We're looking at social emotional learning. We're looking at all those things that are tied together. Attendance, which is a major driver in our district right now. All of these are connected to MTSS. So MTSS also includes data decision-making, data-driven decision-making. So no longer do we want to just guess what's going to happen. We want to get to the place where we're using data to drive all of our decisions as we move forward. Looking at how students are performing in school, looking at how they're performing to determine what we need to do next. Do we need to step back and punt, or do we need to move forward, or do we need to accelerate? It's not just about meeting the students in the middle. We have to look at how we're meeting students at all performance tiers. No one's left behind, okay? And so that's what we're doing when we talk about MTSS and RTI, that response to intervention. What interventions are in place to support students so that we can accelerate or help them just simply gain the entrance and the access to their learning? Strategy 2, implement consistent data-driven instruction. I touched on this, but what we want to do is use data to inform what we are instructing and utilize the curriculum materials with fidelity, because those are coming with very with rigorous information for students. It's what's going to help us really level the playing field no matter where students are performing. Strategy 3, strengthen literacy across all content areas. And that means literacy in math, literacy in social studies, literacy in science, literacy across the content, not just in English language arts, okay? And strategy 4, building systems for coaching, monitoring, and accountability. This is a critical piece because you can design all the best plans in the world, but without a robust plan for monitoring what's happening and the accountability across our system, the plan will mean absolutely nothing. And so we have this in here as a strategy that we will be building a system for coaching, monitoring, and accountability. And you can see the bullet points underneath that detail what that might look like as we move forward. Could we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so now we're at goal number 2. So by June 2031, BPS students in grades 5 and 8 will demonstrate a 20 percentage point increase in science proficiency on the New York State assessment. So here you'll see, again, same layout, strengthen core science instruction, and also strengthen systems, vertical alignment, collaboration, and accountability. I want to highlight in here where it says under strategy 1, protect and prioritize science instruction time, ensure, what does that say over there? Ensure dedicated uninterrupted science. And then also up above, it says ensure all lessons include science and engineering practices, disciplinary core ideas, what have you. When we look at the science engineering practices, what we're doing is ensuring that students are getting opportunities to practice asking questions, predicting. I was in a school today where they spent a lot of time predicting in science and analyzing. These are the structures that we're looking for when it comes to science instruction. Also investigating, modeling, analyzing data. By having this explicitly written here as part of the strategy, we know exactly what our look fors are going to be. And we'll know that we will get to what that goal actually says by 2031, if not before, because we've been explicit in how we plan on getting there. Next slide, please. And before I talk about this, for all of these, we also want to look at how we are differentiating instruction, because you don't want to just teach everything the same exact way. There are ways to differentiate the environment, differentiate the process, differentiate the product. There's so many different things that can be differentiated and engage students because we are meeting them and engaging them the way they need to learn. So here we have goal 3. By June 2031, high schools will achieve a 5% increase in advanced placement and dual credit enrollment. And so by expanding access to the advanced placement and dual credit enrollment, you'll see how we've highlighted how we're going to make that happen. We want to expand those opportunities for the students of Buffalo Public Schools because it's the right thing to do. It's what's preparing them for career, for life, and these are the things that we need to offer. What we have is not enough. We're going to do more, and it's explicitly shared here. If we could move to the next slide, which is our last slide, goal 4. By June 2031, the overall graduation rate will increase from, and it says here, 66 to 75%. So this figure, our assessment team, our accountability team had this figure when we were designing actually the actual strategic plan. And so we will have our baseline and move forward. We know that our target here is 75%, but it's important to note that we are in a range that is definitely not at the bottom of our big 5, right? And I wanted to bring that out. So what we're doing is aligning it to where we are and where we need to go to with this particular goal. And our strategies are here: strengthen secondary core tier 1 instruction, which is what all students are exposed to. We want to make sure that core tier 1 is implemented with fidelity. Strategy 2, improving grade 9 transitions, readiness, and retention. Strategy 3, disaggregate, monitor, and review data to inform decisions. And strategy 4, expand academic advisement and graduation planning. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Thomas. Then we have priority 2. I have Dr. Bullock and Dr. Braun. They'll be presenting priority 2.
Good evening, esteemed board members and the viewing public. I am Dr. Ebony E. Prophet Bullock. I serve this wonderful community as your Chief Accountability and Information Officer. And I had the great pleasure to work with my colleague, Dr. Brown, who will introduce herself on priority 2. Priority 2 is the heart of the district. It is our heartbeat. And priority 2 simply is supporting the whole child, zeroing on safety, well-being, and belonging. Under that priority, we have 4 goals. Goal number 1 is by June 2031, the percent of students in grades 5 through 12 will indicate a sense of belonging on the 2026 District Comprehensive Improvement Plan Student Survey will increase by 15 percentage points. Goal 2, by June 2031, the average daily attendance for all BPS students will be at least 85%. Goal 3, by June 2031, BPS will decrease chronic absenteeism from 77.6% down to 60%. And lastly, goal number 4, by June 2031, BPS will decrease the number of short-term suspensions by at least 15 percentage points. In short, we know that academic achievement cannot happen if our babies do not feel safe, connected, and supported. So again, priority 2 focuses on belonging, attendance, reducing chronic absenteeism, and reducing suspensions. This is about creating environments for our babies where they can not just grow, but they can thrive. And so we have some, next slide. So we have our benchmarks for priority 2. These benchmarks are going to reflect measurable goals around climate, attendance, and student well-being. We know that our students are more likely to succeed when they feel connected to school and to adults and to the adults around them. But we have to know where we started to push towards that 2031 goal. So if you see priority number 2, goal number 1, we want to increase every year by 3.3 percentage points, right? And we're going to take steady, reliable steps towards making sure that kids feel supported. You see our average daily attendance, and so we have all kinds of programs, and my colleague will talk to you about some strategic strategies and programmings around attendance and helping students feel like they belong and are connected. We're going to get into those strategies real soon, but we do have some great strategies to support pro attendance and to decrease chronic absenteeism. I want to move quickly so Dr. Brown has some time to the next slide. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly overview the strategies for priority 2, and Dr. Brown will bring it home. So the first goal, where we are pledging that the percentage of students in grades 5 through 12 will indicate a sense of belonging, will increase by 15 percentage points. So we have 3 core strategies. Again, you heard from Dr. Thomas, there's this core languaging around strengthening tier 1. So there's tier 1 instruction, and there's also tier 1 strategies and supports around behavior and attendance. So our first strategy is around strengthening tier 1 school culture and climate systems. We're going to make sure that students feel connected by making sure they're connected to an adult in their building. We're going to build strong family and community partnerships. We already have a bunch of tools to do that, right? We're going to ensure that we implement structured advisory and relationship building time with students. It's easy to say we're going to make sure our students are connected to an adult. We're going to make sure by making sure we have these structured advisory and strong relationship building time with our students. Strategy 2, we're going to strengthen social, emotional, and mental health supports. We're going to make sure that there's in every school that there are systems, structures, programming where students know how to be in touch and in tune with their social emotional part of them and be able to have the language to say, hey, I need help. And so we're going to zero in on that. And our third strategy, we're going to make sure that we expand student voice and leadership opportunities. We're going to continue to promote great clubs and great experiences so kids can show up and express themselves as authentically as they are. And that could be Model UN. That's all of those great programs that we have in schools. And we're also going to make sure that we have enhanced and increased opportunities for clubs and intramurals, art camps, music, all those things that we know that kids love to do to make sure that kids can use their own voice, develop their voice, speak out, and lead our district in the next way for the future. And so now I'm going to toss it over to my colleague, Dr. Brown.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And again, I'm Sharon Brown, Chief of Student Support Services, and I have the pleasure of collaborating on this wonderful work. So we're going to move right along to goal 2. By June 2031, average daily attendance for all BPS students will be at least 85%. So you'll see under strategy 1, and this is something that we message district-wide, in terms of cultivating a positive attendance. Every day counts. And part of that everyday counts is identifying and addressing barriers to attendance. And that's absolutely critical in order to get to the root cause. It's not just about tracking attendance, but it's really about understanding why students are absent. And it can range from anywhere from transportation barriers, family responsibilities, housing instability. Also, connecting families to resources and services is absolutely critical. We oftentimes find that attendance is sometimes tied to non-academic needs. So we know it's important to ensure that we deepen our work around mental health counseling, transportation support, medical or dental services. Sometimes health concerns can impact a student's attendance. Also use meaningful incentives and recognition systems. And Dr. Mubanga did an amazing job and initiative in terms of bringing our attendance lottery system, and that fit in very nicely with our current attendance initiatives. And we're digging deeper in terms of providing additional incentives. So we are focusing on not relying on consequences, but rewarding positive attendance. As you will see in the code of conduct, and is under a new iteration, but attendance, there are no consequences behind missing attendance. We want to continuously support students. And you'll see in strategy 2 to implement early warning data monitoring systems, looking at those tier interventions, 1, 2, and 3. As we know, tier 1 is universal. It's what every student receives. For example, a school may do an attendance campaign. They may be on the morning announcements, making sure that they say, I'm happy that you're here today. I'm glad that you're here. A tier 2 targeted are supports for students who have emerging concerns. They may be missing 5 to 10% of school time. So in situations like that, you want to see check-ins. Tier 3 is more intensive. That's when you're getting into those individual plans at the building level, family outreach. Strategy 3 is to establish strong base attendance teams. That's absolutely critical. Most of our attendance teachers are in multiple buildings, but even if you have a full-time attendance teacher, it's very important that that attendance teacher works within a team. And it's important that it starts with the principal and AP. They certainly set the tone, they lead accountability and decision-making. Also, the attendance teacher is an important component of that team. A school counselor who can support with social emotional supports, as well as a social worker is another member of that attendance team. And it's important to have a teacher representative, so they're working together. So we want to make attendance a shared responsibility amongst all of us. Next slide, please. So goal 3 is by June 2031, BPS will decrease chronic absenteeism from 77.6% to 60%. And strategy 1, we want to expand our wraparound and community-based services. That's absolutely critical. We see it more and more with the mental health supports that we provide. Also, partnerships with community organizations. We know that we are partners with parents and caregivers, but we're also partners with the entire community, because we know that's critical as our students are engaged with not only schoolwork and at home, but they walk through our communities. So we want our communities to be side by side in this partnership. So strategy 2 is strengthen homeschool partnerships. That's an important factor, because you want to establish that relationship. We have Class Dojo, we have Parent Portal. We have a lot of ways that we communicate with our parents, but also setting some communication expectations and guidelines when we're working with our families, so that we respect and understand how they want to communicate with us. Next slide, please. And so now we are on goal 4, our final goal. And by June 2031, BPS will decrease the number of short-term suspensions by at least 15 percentage points. Strategy 1, we want to strengthen tiered behavior systems and interventions. So what that looks like, we want to increase those social emotional supports. It is also important to implement restorative practices. It's about setting up routines and structures. It's not about responding to situations, but having that standard and that foundation. So when our students walk in the building, they understand and appreciate the culture that's before them. And that involves daily morning circles, because that builds that relationship with the teacher, the adult that's sitting there. They're within the circle. So we don't see that hierarchy. And that helps to build relationships. Also, it improves classroom management and instructional strategies. And then finally, for strategy 2, implement early warning and data monitoring systems. We're very fortunate to have a wonderful early warning indicator from Office of Shared Accountability. And that is a great tool, and it means exactly what it says. It's an early warning indicator. So we're able to see attendance. You don't want to wait until it's chronic. If you see 3 absences, 3 to 5, it is really time to dig into some other interventions, deeper interventions at level 2 and level 3. Also, you have an opportunity to look at academics and suspensions. So that is how we are collaborating to support attendance and suspensions. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, Dr. Mabenga.
Well, thank you. We have Chief Botticelli and Chief Reynolds. They are going to present priority 3.
Good evening. And so we know that with any strong strategic plan, it's a plan that is not just developed for the community, but it's developed with the community. And so with that said, I was personally and professionally pleased when the Strategic Planning Committee reached a consensus to include student, family, and community collaboration as one of the priorities. This priority has 4 overarching goals. Chief Botticelli will review goals 1 and 2, and I'll review goals 3 and 4. Chief.
Next slide, please. Next slide.
Next slide, please.
There we go.
Here we go.
So as you can see, for priority 3, we set very clear and achievable targets over the course of the next 5 years. We're going to use these targets to benchmark our progress and make informed decisions about what's working and what's not. So I'll leave that there for you for a second, but you can see that we've really mapped out the progress we want to make over the course of the next few years. And if we don't make our progress one year, we're going to make up for it the next year, but we're going to stay on top of this and monitor regularly so that we do hit every target. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start with goal 1 for priority 3, which is student, family, and community collaboration. So goal 1, by June of 2031, BPS will increase student, family, and community participation at a minimum of 3 school events by 2 percentage points annually. So in other words, we are going to make sure that at the school level and the district level, for 3 events each year, we increase our participation by 2%. So we're going to be monitoring by school, as well as at the district level for our own centralized events like the summit that you've all been invited to, because we want to make sure that we are seeing increased participation from family, community, stakeholders, etc. So the first strategy is strengthening communication and participation. So one of the things we want to do is make sure that our staff is trained in customer service and relationship building. And that's actually one of the things we'll be working on at our all administrator retreat this summer. We want to make sure that everyone understands what we mean when we say customer service. What does it look like to really interface with people, build relationships, and be supportive? We're implementing consistent multilingual communication using approved platforms and ensuring frequent, accessible, and promptly translated messages. I'm going to talk more about that with goal 2, so I'll come back to this. We also want to develop a shared district event planning calendar so everyone is on the same page and they can coordinate their own events at the school level. And we want to use our parent liaisons, our community school navigators, our various community partners to help support direct family outreach. And I think you're going to see that that's a theme of this particular goal. We are being as inclusive as we can. We want stakeholders across the board to engage with our schools, with our staff, centrally with the district, to make sure that they're really participating and feeling valued in this, their voice is heard. Strategy number 2 is designing relevant, engaging, and interactive events. Again, you're going to see that theme I mentioned. We want to include students, family, and community representatives on the planning committees, to reflect shared ownership and increase participation, because we know when people are engaged in the actual planning of the different events, they're much more likely to encourage others to come, to participate, to feel very engaged. One of the things we want to do to foster that encouragement is offer recognition, give them incentives, and showcase our kids. As a parent, I can tell you when my students have their work hanging or there's some event that they're performing in, I am much more likely to participate, right? So we want to make sure we're showcasing the work of our students. And then again, we want to partner with community organizations and different businesses to co-host events, which will expand our pool of resources. So we really want to be mindful that we're engaging every stakeholder in this planning process. And then third, and perhaps most importantly, we want to make sure we're reducing barriers, right? One of the things that we always think of as a district is what's getting in the way of something happening, right? So what is stopping families from participating in our events? So we want to make sure that we are getting their input, having them tell us what barriers might be preventing them from participating at the school level, at the district level. And then we want to make sure we've created inclusive opportunities so they can participate. So that voice of the family is going to be really, really important. Then I'm going to go to priority 3, goal 2, please. Next slide. This one is exceptionally important to me. We want to make sure that all of our essential documents are translated in our top 10 languages to make sure that families have access, that they have appropriate communication, and they're aware of what's happening at the school and district. So right now, our top 10 languages are Arabic, Bengali, Burmese, Dari, which would also include Persian and Farsi, Karen, Kinyarwanda, Rohingya, which is only oral, Spanish, Swahili, and Somali. So all of our documents, our essential documents, will be translated into those top 10 languages. The multilingual department has actually built a portal on their website, and they'll be training all the administrators how to access it, but they can submit requests for either oral interpretation or written translation. We're also building a repository of different documents that are already translated that they can access, and templates that they can use as they build flyers, letters to parents, that type of thing, so that they're pre-translated and the schools can just plug in the relevant information for their building, like the time or the date, that type of thing. So we want to make sure that we are being streamlined, we are meeting everyone's needs, and parents will also have access to the portal so they can request maybe someone come to an event and help them translate, or if they're struggling with a particular document. So we're giving as much access as possible across the board. We've already started partnering with the Regional Bilingual Education Resource Network, or RBIRD, as they're known locally, to support our own oral interpretation practices, because we want to make sure that everyone understands the ethics of interpretation. They understand how to behave appropriately in that scenario and make sure that the message is getting conveyed accurately. Right now, Talking Points is our approved translation tool. So anytime there is a written document or a message being sent out to the schools, to the multilingual population, we are using Talking Points to make sure that that translation goes through appropriately. And Language Line is also available for any oral interpretation needs at the school level. And of course, we have our own staff at the Central Registration Center that speaks many of our top 10 languages and is able to provide oral or written interpretation. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Reynolds.
Thank you so much, Chief Pavicelli. Next slide, please. So priority 3, goal 3, by 2031, 95% of BPS will ensure student and parent collaboration during monthly school-based management team meetings as measured by meeting minutes. And so when we're talking about SBMT participation and parents, it really is in adherence to Commissioner Regulation 100.11. Parents must be at the table to be included with any shared with any decisions that we are making. Parents are a required stakeholder for the meetings. Schools are enabled to have up to 5 parents. In order to have a quorum, there needs to be at least 1. Our students are recommended stakeholders. And so our hope is that each school will have up to 3 students at monthly SBMT meetings. And the school's student council determines the selection process for students who will be represented at the SBMT meetings. And the community, that's another recommended stakeholder. The community is invited by a consensus of required stakeholders during the monthly school-based management team meetings. They're highly recommended. We want to make sure that students and community, in addition to our required stakeholders, are at each meeting. And so what is the strategy to ensure that by 2031, we ensure that 95% of all schools have these stakeholders at the meetings? The first strategy is to establish clear expectations for collaboration. What does that look like? So we are requiring monthly structured SBMT meetings with defined roles for students and parent representatives, as well as all stakeholders. This is a training that hasn't been provided for a while. And so it's a training that will be offered during our administrators retreat this summer. And the expectation is that the schools will also be providing training to other staff members. Strategy 2, and this is a recurring thing for some of the other goals, to ensure that we are removing barriers to collaboration. And so we want to ensure that we are creating inclusive opportunities so that all families can participate fully. Well, what does that look like? It means that you can use different types of ways to meet during the monthly SBMT meetings. It doesn't just have to be in person. Can have hybrid meetings, can have virtual meetings. We want to gather and use family and student input to identify barriers to collaboration. So if a school is finding that a student or parent isn't at the table, let's find out why. Let's find out why, and let's see and really strive to the greatest extent possible to remove that barrier. Strategy 3, we want to build strong recruitment and outreach systems to ensure that we have all stakeholders at the meetings, but particularly our parents and our students. How can we do that? Well, each school has a parent engagement liaison. That's one of their primary responsibilities, to do outreach. We can utilize our community school navigators, our community partners, all staff. The schools do a really fine job in promoting their SBMT meetings on their social media pages as well. And we want to ensure that we're maintaining consistent membership and engagement at each meeting. Next slide, please. Goal 4, by 2031, June 2031, 95% of BPS will increase parent and family engagement by at least 20 percentage points as measured by annual perception data. I stress engagement because when we take a look at goals 1 and 2 particularly, those are more along the lines of involvement. But how are we distinguishing between involvement and engagement? When we think about involvement, we're thinking about those things that we do to parents, to students. But this goal is really speaking to engagement when we're doing things with them. We want to make sure that our interactions with them move beyond simply transactional and checking things off the box. We want to transition more towards relational interactions with our families. And so how will we do that? What's one strategy? Strengthen home and school relationships. We can do that by hosting listening sessions. We want to, above and beyond the annual parent-teacher conference, let's really talk with our families. Let's invite them in. Let's have listening sessions. Let's help to build and strengthen the relationship with them. And then also provide opportunities for ongoing proactive communication. Unfortunately, oftentimes when we are communicating with families, it's reactive because something has gone wrong. But we want to be as proactive as possible to include the families and so that they can be a part of the decision-making process. Strategy 2, increase parent and family voice. This includes including parents and families in various planning committees. Now, I will say that BPS actually does a really fine job. If you take a look in school districts, not even just across New York State, but across the nation, we do a fine job in really activating and really collaborating with parent leaders. And you all know that we have 6 board recognized parent groups, but we also have parent leaders outside of those groups as well. So we want to increase and amplify their voice as much as possible. And then strategy 3, enhance skills and support learning. So we have a litany of resources, workshops, and things that are, and other resources that are provided by way of our BPS Family Resource Center. So we want to offer that range to all of our families, as well as let's hear from them to determine what else can be offered within the FRCs. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Tim. I think the last one, priority 4, not the least, our CFO will be presenting.
Doesn't have a presentation for you? Doesn't have a presentation for you?
On priority 4.
Oh, I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
Day, everybody. All right, so I'm here to talk about priority 4, the efficient, effective, and equitable operations. We have 3 goals. The first goal deals with transportation. By June of 2031, BPS will reduce the number of yellow buses arriving late by 30 minutes or more by 20 percentage points from the 26-27 baseline year. Our second goal deals with finance. By June of 2031, BPS will annually maintain an audited general fund balance of at least $200 million and an unassigned general fund balance of 4% of the next year's budget. Our third goal has to do with the physical environment and the security within our school buildings. By June of 2031, BPS will improve the physical environment to enhance student learning and to ensure safety. Next slide, please. Here you see the benchmark charts. This is an interesting note on this page for the operational and finance page. If you look at the beginning benchmarks for both the transportation efficiency and the facility safety and security, this was one of the key benefits, I thought, that came out of the strategic planning, and an integral part of the strategic plan being the quantitative setting of benchmarks and tracking performance to those. If you'll notice in those 2 areas on the left-hand side, there's no beginning benchmarks. It's because the first thing we need to do in those areas is to quantify the data better on a regular basis and report that out. The table to the right, this is a very standard, well accepted, if you had to pick one single financial statistic, and that's always dangerous, to show the financial health of your school district, it is fund balance. So there, the goal of maintaining $200 million to ensure financial solvency and the ability to react to unexpected events. And then the 4% over that amount is actually a state mandate. Next slide, please. So here I'm going to talk about the first goal, which has to do with transportation. Very interesting. The superintendent and I, as co-COOs the past few months, and you know, since he's got here, he saw transportation is so impactful every day to the students' personal life and educational life. And there are problems with late buses. It impacts the child greatly. Couple things we unraveled as we dug in there with Joe Goshen, our director of transportation, is the complexity of the issue. Every day we bus about 400 homeless or foster kids great distances. That takes up almost 15 to 18 buses out of our fleet every day. Charter agencies and other institutions that we have to provide buses for don't line up with our schedules. So it's a very complex octopus to get our arms around. Anyway, our strategy is to improve it. We're going to improve school-based arrival and dismissal procedures. They're not standardized across the schools. More training needs on how to handle or manage the children from the schools to the buses. Strategy 2, optimize transportation systems. This is like reevaluate bell schedules and tiered systems, review bus routing and scheduling systems. The third strategy we have, expand transportation capacity and contracts. This is to strengthen bus driver recruitment, staffing and retention, and to strengthen our public transportation partnership. On that second point, NFTA in the high school transportation runs pretty well. That relationship's pretty strong. Another note on transportation is I've worked with the superintendent on school closings. Nothing will improve our transportation greater than busing to less facilities. The superintendent and I ran some numbers with Joe. The improvements in on-time buses and reduced costs from the reduction in facilities is very large, very dramatic, and very immediate. So there's so much going on in a district this large with some structural issues. Transportation is one of those issues. What we have up here are the standard tried and true tweaking of procedures and better management and pushing your vendors like first student. But busing to less facilities is the answer to great improvements. Next slide, please, Admiral. Okay, I'm looking now at goal 2, to maintain an audited general fund balance of at least $200 million and an unassigned fund balance of 4% of next year's general fund budget. Strategy 1, we need to right size the district. You've seen in numerous presentations, and the superintendent had a great meeting with the BFSA yesterday. Our deficits the past 3 years are driving our fund balance to below the $200 million mark. The only significant change in that trajectory is through school closings. There's no other way to prevent that. Once you close schools, you're aligning staff with enrollment and student needs. You're improving transportation efficiency. We've also talked, in addition to Joe Goshen, we talked to Ruth Connor. Less facilities for food service offers dramatic improvements in efficiency and costs. There is a second strategy, though. We're maximizing revenue and reducing costs. 3 areas in particular. We currently have a revenue maximization committee that reviews the special ed reimbursement procedures. That committee, it's Kim Holscher, Rachel Keller from my office, and some others have probably identified about $1 million in additional money we will bring back this year. Special ed reimbursement is very complex, very data driven, and we're making big progress in that area. This year, you're going to see more school-based enrollment and attendance audits at the school level from my staff and some other people I can recruit. We'll have audit procedures, and they're going to be out at those schools. Again, to gather better information that helps us both in our state aid filing and to filter back to the superintendent on what's going on at the schools. I've asked Larry and Talia, with the permission of the super, to help us design a more robust program to reduce charter school tuitions. There's numerous areas we can work on there. Some of them truly have to do with fairness and the way the state enforces the regulations, and you'll hear more on that from us. Admir, or not Admir, who's out there? Next slide, please.
Naomi.
Goal 3, to improve the physical environment to enhance student learning and to ensure safety. Enhance safety, security, and emergency preparedness. Met with Fred. A lot of these things mentioned here are state mandated, and we file those reports and plans, I think, in October of every year. Those things are going well. There's regularly scheduled drills, safety drills and fire alarm drills at every school. And per Fred, those things are going along very well for the current year. Strategy 2, improve building and environmental quality. Here, we already conduct comprehensive facility needs assessments, and jumping down to the 4th bullet, we develop multi-year capital improvement plans. This is another area that there's so much going on in that either hasn't been communicated, and that's going to change very shortly. Well, you'll see. Our first year of formal capital planning was last year in September. We presented all this to the board. We got your approval. Well, $33 million of projects at 24 locations will be completed by this September. The super had me and the team put together some slides which you'll be presented to you. Secondly, we have a year 2 capital program for about $60 million in projects at the schools. We're waiting to sell a bond on that in September. So that facilities are currently undergoing improvement, despite what you might hear or feel that there's no progress there. 2 areas that once the COO comes in, he can absolutely make an immediate improvement on are to implement a preventive maintenance program and to strengthen the work order and rapid response system. So with that, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, CFO and cabinet members. I would like for you to join me close by here and join this seat here, so we'll be ready for question for board members. Let me also take this point of privilege just to say thank you to the 59 persons that are listed here that's they were able to give the time to be able to complete this work. Board, before we take your questions, let me just say we brought this to you as a work session so we can have a conversation to get feedback from you. And we're planning on the next board meeting that you'll be voting on this. But these are my next steps once you approve our plan. We're gonna have to be able to do training with our staff. We have 2 days and a half during the superintendent retreat. We're gonna dissect this, our strategic plan, make sure that all our school leaders and they're well informed and they got all the tools to be able to implement this strategic plan. Then after that training, we're gonna also do training with our teachers to make sure that they're all familiarized with this strategic plan. Then my next step after that is going to be to come up with non-negotiables for our schools as well as our central office. Those are going to be tools that's going to help us to be able to implement this strategic plan with fidelity. Then the next step is going to be monitoring. We're not going to leave this document on the shelf. We're going to make sure that we're monitoring this and on the regular basis and be able to bring report to the board as well as our community. And then the last step, every year, we have to make sure that we're making adjustment. We're going to look at the result. Did we meet our target? If we came short, what adjustment we need to make so that next year we'll be in a better place. At no point during the 5 years, we're going to revise these SMART goals, but the only thing that we can revise is going to be strategies, because strategy needs to be fluid as we're pondering problems and challenges and making adjustment. So without further ado, we have a panelist of experts here. They will be ready to be able to answer to your questions.
Okay, so
Chief Barnes, you can come here. We have a seat here for you.
okay, board members who are on the panel and in City Hall, do we have any questions? I'll start. Oh, Talia? Okay, Talia. Board Member Rodriguez, West District.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I thought the presentations were tremendous. I just had one question about the district comprehensive improvement plan survey. Would that be taking the place of the YRBS when we're measuring belonging, or are we also going to still administer that as well? That was my only question.
Thank you, great question. So the YRPS, it comes out of Dr. Brown's, group, and so we will still do that biannually. The DSIP survey is now gonna be our annual survey that will replace the, at school climate survey.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Board Member Rodriguez. Larry Scott, Board Member Larry Scott, you're up. I see you, there he is.
Yes, sorry. I'm here. Thank you, President Evans Brown. My question has to do with transportation. And I think we certainly need to do more to reduce the significant demands on transportation and the cost of transportation. What I'm wondering is at the end of last school year, we passed a resolution in order for us to have charter schools better align with our three-tiered schedule. And I know there were some meetings and there was some movement to do that to begin this school year. And then the second part of that resolution was to eliminate providing transportation under the, I believe it's 1.5 miles, which we do for our BPS students. And I think there was a decision to hold off on that until the 26-27 school year. So I'm just wondering if anyone has an update on, and ultimately this was to reduce demands on transportation so that transportation was far more efficient for our BPS students. Does anyone have an update on that?
Larry, I can tell you, I can say two things. One, again, more examples of the complexity of the transportation and the demands that are outside of our general ed and sped populations on the system that impact our services to them. Two, nothing that I know of significantly has been done in either of those areas. I will start taking a look at it immediately and give you a follow-up.
And now I'm certainly not, putting all that on you, Chief Barnes. I think that's something potentially for our new COO, Chief Operations Officer, COO, to follow up on.
No, I know that, Larry, but great points, and I can do that.
Thank you. Thank you all for the presentation.
Thank you.
Go Sabres.
Go Sabres, indeed.
So, yeah, in line with Larry's question with transportation, so this is my first time ever hearing that. We transport young people, children, to rural districts, for example.
Yes.
Is there a way that we can get reimbursed by Erie County Department of Social Services? Question. And if not, why? We don't, because we do have parameters and timelines here. We should do the same for those young people.
I believe we can. You're correct for those 355 foster and homeless children. And the revenue maximization team is actively looking at that right now, along with Joe Goshen, the Director of Transportation.
Yeah, but that's only fair. It just makes sense. Thank you for that. Board Member
Good question.
Eric. Bowen?
So you had a lot of percentages over the years of going up and down, and you have to meet them. Who was holding everybody accountable? Superintendent?
All right, good question. Superintendent's holding everybody accountable, but I keep in mind what I said earlier. This is a strategic plan. But there's another document that's gonna come that I'm gonna share with staff is the non-negotiables. The non-negotiable is going to be the TIF that is going to hold folks accountable, whether central office or school level. Those non-negotiable, that's what's going to be the tip for me to be able to hold them accountable. That's only holding them accountable. We gotta support them. The support, that's what we say, we're gonna have those retreat, showing them how it need to be done. But in all the schools, they're gonna have those non-negotiable that's going to be posted, and that's, we're gonna hold them accountable.
Because I know
Yeah.
in a real world, it doesn't we don't always meet those goals. And we like to.
That's what we call them smart goals, and a lot of language you see there, it's at least, because we even want to exceed that. That's why I also said at the end of the year, and that's only the end of the year, once a year, on the regular basis, we'll be monitoring those goals. And then when we come short, we're gonna have a reflection. I'll take my staff to a retreat every year. Let's reflect why we did not meet these goals. Were our strategies sufficient enough, or do we need to revise those strategy in order to have a good improvement next year?
I also had another one with priority 3, the transportation and after hours. How are we getting parents there? Do we have a way, with the schools that they can't walk?
No, not, well, so let me just say this. Schools are able to, so each school, is allocated X number of Title I funds. And so they are able to allocate funds for transportation. When I was principal, we did the same thing. I will tell you that not many parents really took advantage of it, but it is allowable. It's an allowable expense.
So there's ways we can make them aware that this is off the table. Correct.
We could, but the flexibility, more importantly now, in the technology age, when we're talking about, specifically, we were talking about some of these meetings. It used to be that we only conducted the meetings in person, but now we're able to offer them virtually. And for the schools that do that, those are, more often than not, you're gonna have families who are, able to participate in it. Mhm.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back to transportation for priority 4. Well, thank you for this presentation, Dr. Mabanga and cabinet. Transportation is a challenge. I'm only on Class Dojo for 2 schools, and every single day I see how many buses are late, and going to school and coming home. So I attended Civics Day and saw a really persuasive presentation how transportation affects attendance and lateness.
Yep.
And I'm wondering, with this 3-bell tiered system, do we have data comparing 2 bells to 3 bells? Are there unintended consequences? This high school student postulated that attendance is worse now than before 2 years ago with 2 bells.
All right, VP Zulich, unfortunately, we don't have the data
Right.
of previous year. So it's only about 2 or 3 months ago that we start capturing data. We're tracking what are the buses that's coming late and so forth. So we have not the database. If you look at our benchmark, how we're going to improve, you can see the first year. We just really want to start that process in September. So by the time we close in June, we're going to have the yearly data. So that will be our baseline. I agree with you. If you look at our percentage points, we said we're very realistic how we can improve that. But I think we did not have data ready to track or even to hold first students accountable when they come to renew their contract. They want to ask for more, but we did not have any data. We start tracking data for 3 months now. But starting in September, we're going to have a year data till June. That will be our baseline as we're having those conversations, tracking data, and putting strategy in place where we need to be.
Thank you. For what else? Priority 3, student, family, and community collaboration. Just gonna say, I met the minimum of 3 school events this past week. I mean, I love the Saturday academies. My daughter this week did yoga, face painting, there's breakfast, lunch, produce somewhere, so important to our families every week. And the creativity fair, which showcased students, and Feed Your Noodle last night. So we had dinner from Emerson, our high school students made, and then we had different academic and like social and fitness things to do. So I'm wondering, are we utilizing PTOs, parent-teacher organizations that are at a building level, but kind of external the district, I guess? Are we using them as a bridge to engage more parents? So in the 2 schools my elementary students are in, the PTOs are very robust and they're doing things all the time. Like tomorrow we're gonna have a plant sale at one, like the field day, there's fundraisers. The PTOs are hosting the teacher appreciation day, admin appreciation day. So yeah, is there a way we're kind of tapping into their base, I guess?
And feel free to jump in to my ESL colleague. I would say yes. Yeah, for the schools that have, be it PTSAs, PTOs, they absolutely utilize their parent organizations for outreach. Sure.
Great.
But let me also say this, as we're having this conversation, we're also getting feedback from you. We're taking notes so that we can improve our strategies as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because can I just interject also because you're talking about parents. Now, since I've been on this board, one of 2 veterans with the most seniority, I always believe we need more real parents. Now, we have a great relationship with our parent groups, as we know. They always show up. They're good advocates, very articulate. But I always wonder, where are the real parents? To your point.
Well, when you say real parents, you mean in terms of parents who are, let me just back up for a second. So when we think about the involvement and the engagement, we want to meet parents where they are. So we have many families, and this was a conversation that I had with a group of parents recently, who are not interested in that kind of governance engagement aspect of there are some who are only interested in Saturday academies and the spaghetti fairs and things like that. I don't want us to discount those families because involvement in any way is really, I'm talking statistically, helpful to support our students. Now, to your point though, I think we can do better, because what happens a lot of times is when we are having those, let's say district committee stakeholders, and other types of meetings with families, because our parents don't have unions, we defer to our parent Congress to determine which representatives will be there. But there's a lot of other parents who are not connected to our 6 board recognized parent groups. So we want to do a better job in tapping into those parents as well. And also to see if they're interested in getting actively involved in those parent groups. But we have parents who are involved and engaged within their schools above and beyond the 6 board recognized parent groups.
Yeah, and so to parallel this, and I look at student engagement, I think the presentation to have children feel a sense of belonging.
Yes.
We know there's different variables why kids don't show up to school. So it's kind of like similar. We need to build in those non-negotiable for the parents and the non-negotiable for the children as well.
So let's talk about that just for a second, that specific strategy, because I think what you're saying is powerful, right? And so engagement. And I talked about building that kind of relational interaction with our families. A parent may not necessarily need to step a toe into a school, but if I, as the teacher, am connecting with reaching out with above and beyond just our typical annual phone call to invite them into a parent-teacher conference, to check in to see how they're doing, to see how their kids are doing, expanding that connection and conversation with that parent to find out, like, as a parent, what are your hopes and dreams for your child? In school, outside of school, those are ways of connecting to our families and to our students and will make them a little bit more inclined to feel comfortable to actually come in on a regular basis. We can do that without a parent actually even showing up in the building. So we want to enhance that.
Dr. Evan Bond, in addition to what Dr. Renard said, I think we're gonna empower our site-based schools because the parents really trust those principals more than central office. And with those site-based decision-making, if we can get that engagement at each school level, I think that's going to help us to be able to meet the district goal. So the power needs to be back in that schools to be able to engage those families. And we're gonna track it and we're gonna hold them accountable as we're tracking the numbers. Yeah.
I might add, if it's any consolation, we have schools right now that are not waiting for our district strategic plan to improve and increase student parent engagement. They have plans in place and they have the data that they're using to track it, and I could start naming schools, but that would not be fair. So. All right.
And some of the, well, and the PTOs do have a good relationship, I'd say, with admin, that I'm familiar with. One school, they do PTO and SBMT the same day, so everybody's there. And that's what works for that building, that you make one trip. And there's a lot of grandparents involved
Absolutely.
and caregivers. I'm saying parents, but everybody that's involved with raising our children. And my question is, for students being involved in SBMT, is that high school students? Is that children of all ages? What are we envisioning there?
That's a great question, Dr. Bullock. Because, in our conversations with the district committee of stakeholder meetings, that certainly was a topic of conversation. What's the minimum grade level? And I think where we landed, and if you take a look in the district's guidance document for shared decision-making for school and district, we're leaving it up to the school's student council to determine the selection process.
Thank you.
Okay, board member. Mookie Hopkins.
Thank you, Doctor, for that great presentation. For the staff, everybody. What's the plan for affordable resources?
In what sense? Do you mean textbook allocations or?
I mean, in the, what was that core? What was the first core? And it's right. What's the plan for that?
Yeah, let me,
Having that equitable resource. That's the core belief number one.
okay. All right, let me start by responding, then cabinet members will be able to jump in on that as well. So when we're talking about equitable resources, we pretty much want to level the playing field, all right? So we have a formula that we've been using when it comes to school-based management. So we have those allocations that we have to put in place. Once we pass that level, then we start looking at schools that are pretty much struggling, so we can level that playing field. That's where we have with the state support with Fund 1003. Those are additional funds that they give us because some of our schools are really struggling. Then we give that additional support to those schools. And then there's another layer where superintendent has that discretion. When you see some schools that are really struggling, they have more challenge than others. That's the discretion that you use as you having those conversations to see what additional supports that they can have. Now, a typical example, we know that a lot of our schools, based on the designation they have, they were able to receive 1003 funds. They were able to get that money. But there are other schools that they are doing really well, state, then I give them the money. And then you have those principals, they reach out to me, and I receive a several email from community members say, hey, music is really a critical part of our school. Superintendent, the way I went to CFO say, they don't receive additional fund 1003, but this school, they have to maintain this. That's the that's the best way I can respond to. We're looking at that equity lens. Who has it, who does not have it, how can we make it equitable?
And can I just add a little bit to that? Because when we talk about equity, sometimes we always think about what people don't have in terms of, well, let me just put it this way. Anne's example of making sure that we have translation line and we have, people who can speak languages, that is also equity, right? We understand that people are starting, if it's at a deficit, then we're filling that hole first and then going on to the rest of it. So there's numerous ways in which we are demonstrating our commitment to equity.
So do you have a formula for that?
I think that is the formula. It's not a 1 + 1 = 2. It is the formula is those who are at a deficit, we fill in the deficit first and understand that and then still give them everything else they need. So yeah, that would be your answer. There is a formula.
And if I can just hit it home, and so the way that we monitor this is now with our new district comprehensive improvement plan. The state requires us annually now to do an equity audit. And so we're literally in the middle of our equity audit to help us set that plan for the upcoming school year. And it digs deep into finance. We've had to do it over 2 or 3 meetings at this point, 3 hours a pop. And we're looking at every kind of metric, I don't want to call them out, but every kind of metric you can think of, staffing, textbooks, all kinds of various types of allocations, elementary, high school, for SPED, for our L students. And so we have to do this annually in a transparent way and submit the equity report, the equity audit to the state as part of our upcoming plan. And so the state is also saying that we want you to do this in a transparent way, in a collaborative way, and to put it as part of your annual plan every year. So we have a way, beyond just a survey around student belonging, we have a way now annually to look deep at how we cover every aspect of the district as it relates to equity, to make sure that we do it.
Now, is that part of or inclusive of the schools that are on the CSI list?
It's for it's a comprehensive, so it's district-wide.
So is that something different, the CSI listing? Dr. Mabenga mentioned state dollars. We get extra dollars for those schools, correct?
1003. Yep,
Okay.
1003 form.
This works in tandem, it works together. So our CSI and our TSI and our ATSI schools, they get a little extra love with a little few more dollars. But again, together we get to also look holistically because, another aspect of equity is there's schools that don't get the same kind of money because their kids are doing a little bit better, but they still may have a need. They may still need, to plug in art or music or what have you. And so that we have a way through this equity audit to find a way to help as many kids plugging holes as possible.
Can you speak a little bit about every building has a guardian of equity, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Or I don't have to know. I mean, that's important.
So the
I think
guardians,
that's a good question.
they get training through the CLRI department, and they come about roughly once a month. And they're asked to turnkey some information back at the school level. In fact, the schools are about to get a large new purchase of books that were for refugee themes to go to the Guardians of Equity to distribute across classrooms. So they're going to either put them in the library or keep them in a collective space where the schools can access them. But the Guardians have that facilitation expertise, so they can work with them. They do book studies at the school level. They're really trying to foster that sense of belonging that we talked about.
Who points out? Guardian.
I think that they apply, but I can find out.
They apply.
I can find out.
Feel very attached to belonging. That was our table, so. But having a trusted adult is so important. I don't wanna, I could stay here till 6, but, we had talked about at our table how sometimes in a building, it's a couple adults that are the connection for a lot of students. It's not necessarily like one-to-one, that there are extra special people out there.
So, again, if I can reiterate this, when it comes to equity, my former role, in North Carolina, we really wanted to make sure that we define what's equity. So once we're all in the same page, when we have that definition of equity, the equity is pretty much in education is going to be until all our students reach their full potential. Okay, there are some students that come to us advanced, ready to get to kindergarten. There are some that are coming to us a year or 2 years behind. Our role is pretty much in everything that we do, resource-wise. How can we support the one that's coming behind so they can also reach their full potential? I'll give an example when it comes to RTI. All right, when we have RTI time, that's the time when you're looking at equity. I should be able to pull one of my best teachers probably to be able to reach out to the one that are struggling the most so they can move them during that RTI. So it's not just about dollar, but it's also about practices that we do so that we can level the play field.
We have a great early warning indicator system already where we have district staff and some schools actually even have building level staff that can go into our EWI system and they can pull data on any student from birth to wherever they are currently in the district. So they could look at health obstacles or issues. They can look at if the child had preschool education. They can look to see if a child comes from a 2-parent or 3-parent or multi-generational home. They can look at language, all kinds of things in this early warning indicator. And so we made a important and an intentional decision to front that and put that in this plan that we're going to be using that tool to monitor and to make those decisions when we are trying to make sure that we infuse equity. And so, that's one of the tools that we're really excited to.
I love that idea. I remember when you introduced that years ago. So what triggers someone to go into that system, and who is able to do it?
It's triggered by one flag. So if you are a student who lives in 14215, because we know that there's some great needs in 14215, that's automatically a trigger. And so as you get more, we call them flags. There's a higher level of triggering, if you will, and then you can actually dial into the system and dial down to resources. And so what we're doing now with this plan is we're going to make sure that every year we're going to continue to make sure that the resources that we can suggest to a school community is the best research-based type strategies and things of that nature. So it's an annual process of reviewing and adding to, so every district staff has access to it, every building principal. We have some really great building staff that really use that EWI system.
Can I just, one more thing, just to give us like a short little, because I know, again, we throw the word equity around all the time, not really understanding all the layers of it. But if we think about equity in terms of we give every single student every single thing they need to get to the goal, then that'll answer your questions, right? Because some students don't need anything, right? And a lot of students need a whole bunch of stuff. So we give people what they need to get to the goal. So there's your formula, Board Member Hawkins.
I read a quote earlier today, but I think it applies to our strategies here, to create a rising tide that raises all boats. Like that.
I just wanted to add in, I'm not sure if anyone saw my hand.
We did not. Board Member Rodriguez, you're on.
Wonderful. I also am very excited about the term. And I think that in response to Board Member Hawkins' question, one of the things that I'm reflecting on from my lived experience is equity is also helping the student better understand how they need their boat lifted so they have the language themselves. I remember the first time I heard the term domestic violence, like learning about the things that you might witness or experience out in community, I think is an important part of what we do and part of students feeling belonging to Vice President Zulich's point is the trusted adults in the building mirroring the language that you are learning or that is empowering to you. So I am really excited about resourcing our communities and our families, but I think it's also important that we focus on that we are doing that work by helping students better explain their life situations so that they can advocate for themselves.
Board Member Hawkins?
Yeah, looking at priority one, AP dual credit and raising the graduation rates. The language was, it's a little uncertain. It's easy for everybody to enroll in AP courses, but passing exams and earning college credit, I know that work to be done with that. So what will be the specific curriculum and, what are those benchmarks and who will own that, in reference to making sure that gets done?
Okay. So I have a team that specifically focuses on dual credit and enrollment courses. They go out and make sure that kids, they go out and make sure that students are able to register, that they understand the process, and then they also support the teachers with the instruction. The kids have access to AP Classroom, which they use in school and out of school it's created by College Board, and it gives them a sense of what the AP rigor should look like. We support the teachers in creating their syllabi. So we don't write the curriculum for AP, teachers drive it with their syllabi, but we norm them across the board so that they're doing something consistent. And then they have to submit it to College Board for approval. If it's approved, we then will pull the teachers and provide the appropriate supports to make sure that they're meeting the goals they've set on their syllabus. Dual credit, that is standardized across by the college that we partner with. So it's actually their curricula aligned with our curricula. So the teachers are approved by the dual credit institution to make sure that the institution agrees that our teachers can deliver that instruction. And then many of them send their professors to observe and just give feedback to teachers. So there is a way to standardize the quality of the instruction. And in a dual credit course, as long as you pass the course with the appropriate average, you can get college credit. And many of our AP courses are also dual credit. So for example, AP English Language, many of our students take that as juniors. It replaces the English 3 course. So instead of taking the regular English 3, they take the AP English class. And they can also get dual credit. So even if they didn't get a 3 or higher on the exam, they can still get college credit from our partner. So many of our courses are both AP and dual credit. So a lot of our kids are walking away. Actually, many of our freshmen can walk away with college credit because we offer several courses as a freshman. We're bringing a new AP course on to meet the new requirement from the state for personal finance. So we're training all of our business teachers next week to offer AP business and personal finance. And that is mainly going to be offered to freshmen. We also dual credit our CFM, Career Financial Management course. So almost every freshman will be able to get potentially 3 college credits before they become sophomores.
You know what? I was getting ready to ask this question to Chief Botticelli because we were in San Antonio, Texas, 2-3 weeks ago. And all of those young people take AP courses in their freshman year. And my question was to ask you, how come our kids aren't taking AP courses in the 9th grade? But you just answered that you're starting that process with business for all freshmen.
And they can take dual credit. So most of our freshmen, especially at the CTE schools, take CFM already as freshmen. So now we'll be dual credited, effective, I think, last year.
I am so excited to hear that. Thank you.
So who will make sure that teachers are submitting this because teachers don't?
We work with them to submit the syllabi. We make sure that it gets.
Your office?
My team.
She has a team. And then I think Janita mentioned that even some of they're starting with 6th graders there now. And,
6 graders taking
yes.
AP? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. We were like, what?
Okay.
Oh, 6th graders.
Yeah, Mr. Board Member Hawkins, I think the way we wrote this strategic plan with benchmark, that's gonna put a lot good pressure, not only on superintendent, even cabinet, everybody else. the people that work under Chief Botticelli, that's responsible for AP classes and dual enrollment, they have these numbers. They're gonna have these numbers say, this is where we're gonna be, this is where we're gonna report to our board and our community as well. So when they're going to school, they gotta have those benchmarks to make sure that the work is done because they know that we're gonna report this to the community. Couple that with all my cabinet members, they know that they have the work plan at the beginning of the year is going to align with the strategic plan. And the same way, the people that work under the divisions responsible for AP and all that, they're also gonna have a goal that they have to meet based on our strategic plan.
So it don't become outcome based no more, it's really gonna be action based.
Yeah.
Sometimes it sounds like, end results, but it's still about specific strategies. Just get to clarity, so some concerns I have. What Pacific community leaders will the district lean on to provide this mission statement through?
I think is as I said, is a collaborative effort. Once you approve the strategic plan this month, we're gonna do work with our school leaders and central office during the superintendent retreat. And then we're also gonna have PD with our teachers as well. As a matter of fact, before they go home in June, everybody's gonna have a copy of this strategic plan. And then I'm going to get back in the community as well, sharing this strategic plan with our community, civic organizations, faith-based community as well. So that's, as we said, it's going to take community effort for us to be able to get where we need. And I'll go back and make sure that everybody understands what we have in place. And then on an annual basis, I'll be going back to make sure that I share results with them and the challenges that we're facing, whether or not we're meeting our goals. That will be pretty much ongoing, and I will be in a community making sure that we share those practices and those strategies.
What is the clear link between discipline, attendance, and academics?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What is the clear link between discipline, attendance, and academics?
The clear link.
It seems like the goals is a little separate.
Oh, no, I think they're all interconnected because first of all, it starts with attendance. They need to be present so that we can teach them and engage them. And behaviors is how we engage students, how we address those behaviors, not going right to exclusion immediately unless it's serious. How we engage with them. And you said attendance, suspension, and academics. And academics, again, it's a partnership. So kids don't disconnect from their social emotional side because they're in an academic class. So it's about merging all those pieces together.
I was gonna say, if you look at the plan, there is some coherence. There's some through lines. Each of our priorities, we talk about circling back to tier one, some universal supports academically for attendance and behavior, all the things we're going back to. There's some just things that every student is gonna get. If you go into 100 classrooms, you're gonna see a certain kind of instruction, certain kind of leaning in for attendance and behavioral support. That may look like a trusted adult in every school, having kids being connected. So as we move along, we're moving towards coherence with, through the plan. And so the strategy may look a little different here and there depending on how you drill down, but there is coherence in this plan and how we're serving our students.
And keep in mind that the first priority is academic excellence. So from a research standpoint, our students who don't do as well academically are the same students who have the higher absenteeism, as well as higher disciplinary referrals and suspensions as well. So it's critical for us to really strengthen the support that we're providing to our students academically, because students will be more inclined to come to school if they know that they can do the work once they get there. And then they'll be less inclined to get in trouble if they're able to do the work. Think about kids in the classroom who are acting out. These are kids who sometimes are a little academically deficient, and they're distracting from their lack of, engagement with academics. They'll act out, they'll get written out, they'll get suspended. So we have to make sure that we really focus on that first priority, academic excellence, and that will support the other goals that we have as
Yeah,
well.
it clearly is an example that clearly show that these systems actually work together.
I'd like to give an example. And so what we prioritize is what's going to get the most attention. And when I think about, say, the schools in my cohort, and I believe I can speak for the other cohorts across our district, right, under ASLs. I have shared with the principals I work very closely with, behavior data, wrote an elaborate report for them just for the cohort. Attendance, you saw them as well, right? Attendance and academic performance, and looked at three-year trends across the cohort for iReady, mid-year, what have you. Wrote these reports, right? Didn't take a spring break. And here's the thing, they understand how critical it is and how intricately wound each of these areas are: discipline, attendance, academics. First and foremost, if the child is not in the seat, they're not getting what they need at core. And not in the seat means attendance or discipline. And so our schools are currently looking at how can we do parent conferences in lieu of suspensions so that we can keep our kids in the seat and keep them present. And then also looking at how can we improve attendance for teachers? Because if they're not there, that's hard as well, right? So we're looking at all aspects of this, but it is all intricately wound. And we are prioritizing each of these pieces. And I speak for even the principals I'm working with, they understand where they stand as far as behavior is concerned. They don't want to be at the bottom of the cohort for that. They don't want to be the one. I say this, are we pulling our cohort this way by our overall behavior data in our schools, or are we pulling our cohort up this way? Because I have targets in each of these areas for the whole cohort, so they understand they're not separate. So it's how we articulate it. It's what we emphasize and what we prioritize, and they understand it. So the district strategic plan is very clearly written. The expectations are there, but it's how we make it living and breathing that's going to allow it to take shape and show that seamless thread.
Who's going to track the teacher attendance? Who'll be doing that?
So OSA works with HR to do that, and so we have metrics that we'll be using that we can look at. So OSA is your data house, and so we have a bunch of dashboards. I will tell you the teacher attendance will not be forward facing, but should folks need a report, we work with HR to pull that report and we show it. You know, we can demonstrate improvements.
How soon can we have that report?
So you would put a request in through Dr. Mabenga, and he'll say, Ebony, can you work with Tammy? And we'll get it for you.
Because you all kind of see it in board docs all the time, all these people out for assessments.
I see the playbook.
But can I hinge on that too? Because I think the questions that you asked are really great questions. And what I love about what Dr. Thomas did with her team is, so there's that, and then there's an operational part of it. So she gets her team so comfortable now with looking at data that they have no problem now looking at the live dashboard. So the principals have a view where they can see all kinds of things, not just the early warning indicator, but they can see all kinds of things. High school principals can do graduation reviews like that. They can look at Ebony and see what Ebony's doing. And so our ASLs are really driving our principals deep into data, helping them learn how to pull reports. This was like we do with our kids, right? This was like a scaffold. The expectation is that our principals, our teachers, and even our students, I think Dr. Kathy, Evan Brown, you said this a while ago, we have schools that are engaging their kids and their family in data. So they know how to speak to, I didn't hit that particular benchmark for grade 5 algebra XYZ, and this is why, right? So kids are now learning also to leverage their data. Parents are learning to leverage their data. You all know Dr. Laura, she hits every parent group in the fall and drives them back to the dashboard. This is how you filter. This is how you look. When you ask this question, here's the answer. And so the other great thing about this document and working with our colleagues is at every level, we want to teach you to fish. Don't just trust what I say about attendance, behavior, or anything. I want you to be able to go to our dashboard, look at the dashboard, certainly hold us all accountable, but there should never be a question that you can't already answer because the data is out there for us.
What's the strategy for hard to reach families?
Your PowerPoints, you,
Someone has a PowerPoint?
yeah. I think that was.
I can provide, I can't speak specifically for each school. But I'm certain that schools have plans for utilizing parent engagement liaisons. There are schools that, as a part of a non-teaching duty, will have certain touch points that school staff, that teachers have to make on a weekly basis to those are part of reach parents. We have some attendant.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, and when attendance teachers that go to the homes.
No, she's right. The attendance teachers can also reach out through home visits. You know, I talked about earlier, Class Dojo. We have multiple ways where we can try to reach families. If there's a language barrier, we have language line. And I talked about earlier about having some kind of communication guidelines, and that's something we really want to deepen that work by next school year. Is to really identify, especially parents that are hard to reach, find out what's the best way. Sometimes our families are moving from one place to the next and trying to make sure that they understand that school can be a great resource to support them in that.
And one of the most powerful strategies that all of our schools use, because we know that even for the hard to reach families, when you recognize their kids, you're showing up. When they're participating in extracurricular activities and sporting events, you're showing up. So there are many of our schools that use those opportunities when they know those parents, particularly the hard to reach parents, are going to be there, and they'll slip a little academic something in their hand, you know. So those are also strategies that schools are utilizing in hard to reach parents.
Yeah, many of our schools have robust plans for contacting parents and make that a priority in their schools. But I think what's happening is we don't speak enough about it. So we need to share more with, because that's what I'm hearing. Your questions are excellent, but we need to share more about those best practices, where they're happening, so that other schools also, if they don't have those pieces in place, can start to jump on that. But there's some pockets where it's really happening.
Yes, so and one more piece. Back to my principal days. But asking the student, if you have that trusted adult in that relationship, kids will give you the number, even if it's not the number on file. So that's where you just have that whole connection, because they will help you to reach out to them.
And we have a great partnership between Sharon's team, Ramona's team with Faye's. And we have a tool that we use. It's called Class Dojo. Because kids' home language is in Infinite Campus. Dojo communicates like that. Now it's not our, one that we use.
Talking point.
It's the official. But the great thing about Dojo as an addition, aside, not the main thing, but the helper, is that it speaks in their language like that. And all of a sudden now, high schools are wanting to be a part of Class Dojo because a teacher can put a little message in. The messaging suite now is really, really enhanced, and it just really helps teachers and students and parents have this really wonderful communication in their home language. And so when we send out messages, we don't do a lot of district messages in Dojo, but when we do, we hit 37,000 families in the languages that they speak, and that's a text, an email, or they can get a call. And so that is an amazing tool that schools are leveraging to get quick word out when they need to get word out. And we need a whole bunch of people to come to the summit. We put it in there. Tammy and I, partnered to put something in there for bus aid. I think it was a bus aid recruitment. And she ended up getting, 75 quality applicants in one, for that one thing. So I do agree with Dr. Thomas that sometimes we don't toot our horn enough with the wonderful tools that we have to reach out, having staff that look like our children. I was at a school today, and one of their building substitutes is a guy from across the street from the school. He knows everybody in the community, and he's shaking hands. Hey, so-and-so, Miss So-and-so said you didn't give that note to your mom because your mom says she doesn't know about it. So those are also all those ways that we don't really toot our horn enough about how to reach out.
Let me make this comment before we move to the next point. To Board Member Hawkins, we got work to do. This is a continuous improvement. We are not where we need to be. It's part of all these great tools that we have. We're not going to be at 100%, but that's why we have those really smart goals in place. And we'll expect to get feedback from you so that we'll continue this work. So we still have work to do.
Yeah.
How many attendance teachers do you have?
We have 18 attendance teachers.
And see, years ago, on that same line, how many days do a student need to be absent before an alert?
Well, it's funny you ask that because we are pushing for, even before it gets to chronic of 18 days or more, when you see a student missing that second, third day, that's why there's so many different levels of intervention. I had mentioned about that attendance team. Our attendance teacher is on there, a teacher, a social worker, because if you're looking at that data, you can be able to speak to that. But we do have attendance referral forms where it will activate additional support at the school level and at the district level.
You know, years ago, when I was a child protective worker, we used to get referrals when kids were out of school for from 3 to 5 days about education to the class. But it was just an allegation, right?
Right.
But you find out maybe the kid was sick or the parents were sick or whatever. And so since which time the mandated training has changed because there was subtle racism that existed. And so now a mandated reporter can't make a report because, you know, a child is getting out of school. So that we're seeing the impact of that as well.
Absolutely.
So it goes on and on. But I just wanted to know, what do you look at in terms of how many days to alert, you know, a concern? To me, 3 days
Yes,
is enough.
I mean, we would like to at least start at the teacher level where they call home. We also promote attendance buddies. We started with an attendance support plan that we reviewed with all of the building level administrators. And that is one piece where you can look at that, those strategies and those interventions that come up early. And that tier 1 support, when you have all of your PBIS activities, that promotes students wanting to come in. Even just in PD, we'll say the difference between a student who's coming in late. Oh, great, you finally decided to make that. I'm not saying any of your schools do that. But as opposed to saying, I'm so glad you made it. Let's talk. Is everything okay? So it's making that student feel welcomed. So.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the mission statement, can you send that out to the board so we can review that?
Yeah,
'Cause I know that's a pretty big piece, 'cause it's gonna be in every school.
yes, sir. We sent it to you via email about 3 weeks ago, the PowerPoint. No, not the PowerPoint, the actual draft of the strategic plan.
Can you
But
just send
just the strategic plan, yes.
Yep.
So we'll make sure you'll have it tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Thomas, you taking notes? Yeah.
Transportation, I know that we've consolidated and cut over 100 routes when it comes to, you know, transportation. But, you know, that stockpiles a lot of things, right? When you do that. If one route is late, then you might as well just say it's gonna be a domino effect of the entire day of Route
Correct.
2 and Route
Especially the
3.
tier 1, yes.
Right, so all that stuff is like, so what would a more functionable system look like as far as transportation?
Less stops. No, and it's, we were amazed at the power of, say, if you have 4 less schools. The on-time rates go almost up to 93%. And there's an elimination of 20 23 buses and drivers that can either be removed or put as that buffer that we don't have right now. Right now, 11 bus drivers take off. Every other problem in the system is multiply. It removes that, the removal of stops has a multiplier effect on a reduction in routes. It's very powerful. And that's the significant improvement you can make. The other stuff, you're tweaking around the edges.
You know, also as we having those conversations about school closure, we're looking at tier 1, tier 2,
Right.
tier 3. If we're gonna have less tier 2 buses, I think that's also going to help with the efficiency of transportation. So we're looking at all those numbers as well.
Looking at
Yeah.
those foster care children.
Yep.
Just having a, special busing for them will help too.
You're correct, and that goes to one of the points in the strategic plan. Additional capacity and vendor relationships. You gotta be able to get state approval for the type of driver and the type of vehicle, but you could add 15 buses to the fleet if you could take them in vans. We're driving like 200 miles with 3 kids on a bus.
Everyone is
That's
actually holding a
crazy.
symposium, and Joe Goshen is participating, and they're looking at maybe sharing routes and things like that, so they're gonna have conversations about ways to
But
manage.
you have what, 470 buses, you have 6 districts.
Yeah.
From what I'm understanding, and you have a bus that's going from the north
Yes.
to the south to the west.
Yes.
So that's
Without a doubt.
a route specialist issue. So how can why do we got those buses going all over the place? I mean, why are we not consolidating those 90 buses in each district so you could just keep them in one district instead of have them going from west to north to south and think that they're gonna get on?
You have to look at our student reassignment as well. So that's where the problem start.
Yeah.
So as a matter of fact, so we have a whole day with Sharon Bronze with UB students that did a research, and we're just gonna have a conversation to look at those routes and just have a conversation. So I think student reassignment is also the problem.
Yeah.
If you have one family, there are 3 buses are going there to pick up just one family. That's an issue. So we have to look into all that.
To see what a route sheet look
Okay.
I would love to see the civic students pick up the task.
like.
So those are really good conversation, good retreat for us to be able to be really getting deeper to see what are those problems.
Get out of
Yeah.
the park.
Yeah.
I'm all set, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Board members,
Next question, Board Member Rodriguez.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. I know that we're moving to close. I thought, I shouldn't say that. I was assuming that Board Member Hawkins' questions were exhausted, but what I wanted to add for the, I mean that respectfully. What I wanted to add for the conversation about busing is there are certain locations, and I think many of us know this, where our DSS partners place our families when they do reach out for a homelessness assistant or when they're unhoused, and working, as everyone's acknowledged, a little bit closer with them to maybe coordinate those placements, or to your point, Board Member Hawkins, have a more centralized transportation system if we know several families are going to be placed at a certain location. I know with food work has definitely improved. So I just wanted to add that I think everyone has an important perspective here.
Thank you.
Board, if you don't mind me making
Their hands. Okay.
may I make this quick comment here? Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present this, and we hope when we bring it back at the regular board meeting, we'll get approval, so we'll be able to move forward and do this work. But I just want to say this, all the problems that we're facing in district has been there for a long time. Implementing a strategic plan, we're not expecting this a silver bullet that's tomorrow all the problem disappears.
Right.
That's the reason why we're very strategic with those benchmarks. We really want to see 3 percentage points here. And I don't want anyone in the community to say, we go to a school, we still have those issues. There's still gonna be those issues because we are going to be able to put PD in place and be able to hold folks, support folks before we can hold them accountable.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the year, we'll be bringing to you the result to see how we're making those progress. We hope you guys are gonna trust us to do this work, and we look forward to bringing you the reports.
Thank you. This concludes my work session for 5/6/26. Where's my gavel? Get it. Get it.
I always wanted to do that.
She delegated something.
For president.
Jumped in that, so quick.